All right, welcome to week 18, final week of the regular season of Ronde and Tiki presented by SuperBook. Don't worry, we'll have some playoff editions as well, leading all the way up to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Can't wait. We can go see the actual SuperBook. Ronde, this season has been wacko. I don't even know what to call it. All over the damn place.
I think trying to make sense of the 2023 season is a fool's errand. There's no way I could. They talk about it being scripted. They are full of shit. There is no way this is scripted. It's too much, everything for it to any one person or many persons at NFL offices to come up with this script. This is crazy, but it's been awesome though. That being said, it's been awesome. I mean, in what world does Joe Flacco mania start a month ago, and it's the biggest story of December in the NFL? It's just not possible. But that's where we are.
Yeah, and at this point, the Cleveland Browns have as good a chance of anybody as winning the Super Bowl. Actually, probably not, because Baltimore's in their division, but you know what I mean. But the way that Joe Flacco, just as a quick aside to Joe Flacco, improbable. In New York last year, it was, yeah, we're tired, dude. You won a Super Bowl. You did well. You did some good things. See you later. Now he throws the ball around with reckless abandon. Actually, it's really calculated. And so it's Stefanski who's probably just doing a hell of a job. But Joe Flacco, he's the story of the last half of the season.
Right. Is he's a little bit of, and we could talk about him a little bit later. I think I maybe have him in our agenda later, but the reality is he's not doing anything more than he's done his entire career. His numbers are basically the same, right. But the manner in which he's doing it, it feels explosive. I don't know how you qualify this as being, one man's great run at playing quarterback when he's already had that. He's already been a Super Bowl quarterback with a good defense. But dude, right now it's when things just go your way, and no matter what you do, they just go your way. That is Joe Flacco right now.
That is definitely Joe Flacco. Well, he's one of the stories. One of the other stories, and we got to it last week a bit, was Russ getting benched. No more Russ. You're out, bro. Sorry. I don't care about what your faith believes in. Football matters. It's about balling. Right. And Jared Stidham goes out and he wins the damn game. Now, he didn't throw the ball more than 3 yards downfield for, 95% of his throws. But he did have the big touchdown, the little Jordan Humphrey, which was a great off-schedule throw. He put it where it needed to be. He's accurate. I don't know if he's going to be a stud, but he's smart. And I think that's what Sean Payton wanted most.
And I think Sean's trying to prove something, that he doesn't need a star quarterback. He can make his quarterback. Obviously, Drew Brees, was a good player when he went to New Orleans, but he turned him into a Hall of Fame player. Sean Payton did. And I think he wants to feel like he's doing that here. And plus, I think I said it. I know I said it because I've been thinking this forever. Russ is not good enough anymore. He's not sharp enough. He can't control the offense the way that Sean wants to run it. So was this a surprise to me? Only in one regard, that it took this long for it to happen. Because I all year, it was smoke and mirrors the way they were winning football games. Like check down and then launch the ball, like, was non-existent. You see the frustration on his face with that play sheet over his mouth calling plays. He's like, how can I get this to work the way I want it to work? And he knew he couldn't do it. So it was just a matter of time before this happened. And all the conjecture about why and the timing, I don't even really care. The reality is that Sean was going to make this decision at some point this year.
I think everybody knew that. And the only thing that's worth talking about anymore, and we won't do it because I don't care like you, is whether or not telling him he needs to change his injury, whatever, on his contract, or he's going to get benched mattered. It's an at-will league, and you are an at-will employee. When they decide to get rid of you, no matter how much money you're making, you will be gotten rid of. Anyway, let's get to the games that matter, dude. All right. There are a couple teams who we know are beyond reproach in their respective conferences. The Baltimore Ravens, who had Zamar, I said it how many months ago? 3 months MVP. I mean, it is
You
what it is.
you may have.
I may have, but in the San Francisco 49ers. But the problem is it's week 18. They still have another game to play.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were ever in this situation. I don't think I was, but I've seen what happens when coaches say, "Yeah, you know what? Let's make this a preseason game. Right? Maybe you'll play, maybe you won't, and we'll see what happens. We'll see you on the other side." When in this case, for these two teams, it's 2 weeks. Do you love that? I hate that, by the way, but do you love it?
I hate 2007. We had already won our division. We sat guys for basically like 2 weeks, like had not playing them, but we just kind of pushed everybody, play a quarter, play a couple of series. Like John wanted to sit. Gruden wanted to sit some guys. Like he asked me if I was going to sit. I was like, absolutely not. Am I missing a football game just because we've already secured a playoff spot? And I'm not saying that's why we lost to the Giants. The Giants ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. But the reality is you can't take your foot off the gas. You sign up for 16 games at that point, 17 games at the beginning of the season, and your intention is to play every single one of them. That to me is a mentality that the good teams adopt and never leave from. Whether that last game is meaningless, but whether that last game is to get us in the playoffs, you play it. Well, in this year, Tiki, there's 9 teams that we already know secured spots. There's 5 more. 3 of them are going to be division winners, and actually 4 of them are going to be division winners. There's 4 games that matter this week just to win the division, and then obviously the myriad of impossible to digest in one sentence playoff scenarios are going to come up for grabs. But there's 4 divisions up for grabs: the NFC and AFC East, and the NFC and AFC South. All those games are playing for this weekend. So obviously the NFC East, Tiki, Philly, Jesus Christ, what is going on with this team? Dallas, we know they got lucky, right? Buffalo plays Miami for the NFC East. We're going to talk about AFC. I'm sorry, AFC East. We're going to talk about those 3 games at the very end of the show. But let's talk about the ones that matter. And I feel like we've been talking about the South divisions for 2 weeks, but the reality is they've been up for grad for about 2 or 3 weeks, with all the teams basically still in it except for Tennessee and AFC and Carolina and the NFC South. So real quick, top 2 games that matter: Bucks and the Jags. So Tampa plays Carolina. You got to feel like coming off a stinker at New Orleans, Tampa, that is. That they have to win this football game. They control their destiny. Give me your take on Tampa going to Carolina. I think it's Tampa's 5.5 favorites.
I'm surprised it's
37.5.
I'm surprised it's only 5. That line feels like it should be 10 at least, and it's only that way because of how poorly Baker and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played for 3 quarters against the New Orleans Saints. And the reality here is that the Bucs control their destiny, but behind them, the Saints and the Falcons, a game which I'm calling, those guys are going to be bored watching, right? Because the games are happening simultaneously, and that's an odd spot to be in. Like you got to win this game, but you also know that if Tampa, gets out to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter, right? Doesn't even matter. So it's an odd spot for the game that I'll be calling. So we'll be calling it, but also watching closely what Tampa is doing to the Carolina Panthers. So Carolina is, I don't want to say they're in shambles because they're very young. They got an interim head coach. Like, who knows what the future actually holds? David Tepper is getting frustrated down there. He's throwing, drinks into the stands and things of that nature. I fully suspect that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to return to form that we saw the previous 3 weeks of December, not the last week of December. And this will be, honestly, this is the most anticlimactic one to me, because I think the way that it's set up with all division games at the end, Saints, Falcons, which I'm calling, as I mentioned, and then Bucks, Carolina, it worked out perfectly for the Bucks because they have a young quarterback on Carolina who just hasn't got it done consistently.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more on this one like we did in December until last week. That game last week was an outlier. I was there. Turnovers matter. You know, they skunked Jacksonville the week before. Four takeaways. They had 4 giveaways against the Saints, and the Saints still really didn't run away with this football game. They only scored 6 points in the second half. New Orleans did. Defense came to play, and by the time Baker and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got going late in the football game, it was too little, too late. I mean, there was a 2-point conversion opportunity there. If that would have scored, it would have made an 8-point game, and it really could have turned into something. But it didn't. They laid down in a game in which they could have won the division. Now they get a redo against a lesser team, and I think I said that probably a month ago, that it was going to come down in these divisions to the last game of the year, and to the one that got Carolina was probably going to be the one that's favored, and that's Tampa Bay. So yeah, 5.5. It's probably not enough. I agree with you. Carolina. I mean, they get to start over next year. Let's just leave it at that. All right. So if the Bucks lose, Tiki, the winner of the Falcons and Saints wins the division. Wins the division. That's a game to even think about. Saints are 3.5-point favorites at home in that game. Falcons are plus 155. We're not going to talk about it because it's the game which you're calling. But I will mention Atlanta. It's hard for me to trust them right now because they keep yo-yoing a quarterback position. So I don't have any idea what they look like on that side of the ball. Now, New Orleans, in the previous matchup earlier in the year, gave up 228 yards rushing to Atlanta. It's the only reason they won that football game. That can't happen again. And New Orleans, I think, is the better of the two teams. It's the better of the two teams in this game. But Atlanta can come out of nowhere at times. But you just can't trust them. So we will move on to the AFC South. All right, this one gets interesting to me, Tiki, because all of these teams needed to win last week, and they all won. Jaguars, Colts, Texans got the W's they needed. And now, obviously, Jacksonville destroyed Carolina last week without Trevor Lawrence, right? They're a must-win game. And it's a must-win game, so the quarterback probably plays. I think Trevor Lawrence plays. But I'm looking at this game, right? It's at Tennessee. Tennessee is 5-point underdogs in this game at home. What are you thinking about Jacksonville's chance of winning the division? They too control their destiny.
Right. So I think that I think the Tennessee Titans are a team. They've been out of it for a couple of weeks now. But it doesn't seem to matter to them. And a lot of that is simply because of their head coach in Vrabel. In fact, 2 weeks ago, 3 games ago, so not counting 3 from this one, was the first game that Mike Vrabel had ever coached that didn't matter in December. Think about that. He's been the head coach. It's his 6th year. It's the first game ever 2 weeks ago that he coached that didn't matter towards getting into the postseason. So he's not used to this, and as a result, he's not pushing this thing towards next year. Hey, let's wrap around, wrap up this season and get healthy, play some young guys. Because the truth of the matter is, there's still some speculation about whether or not he'll be back. Not because they're going to fire him, but because he might want to move on to another opportunity, one of those actual mutually agreed to part ways type things. You know what I mean? Not the save face one that we hear all the time, right? So to me, Tennessee is gonna play hard because they always do. The question is going to be what happens at quarterback. And, with Will Levis and Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis started again last week, despite Tannehill playing, I think, better than him over those last couple of games. So to me, it's going to be the quarterback. But if they get a consistent quarterback play and Derrick Henry, I like Tennessee in this one, being a home dog against Jacksonville, who kind of like the Atlanta Falcons. I don't really trust. I want to, but I really don't right now.
Right. They had that stretch during the December where they lost 4 in a row, 5 in a row, however many it was in a row. Like complete control over division. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that situation. Well, maybe you did. You had complete control over a division, and all of a sudden you just don't. I mean, they were running away with this, and then they have this crisis in confidence. Of course, it was helped on by a bunch of injuries. Christian Kirk gets hurt. Zay Jones has been battling knee injury, and the defense just disappeared in Jacksonville, just completely disappeared. The one reason I'll say Jacksonville gets right and finds a way to win this is because Tennessee's O-line is terrible.
Yeah, it
And
is.
both of their tackles are just not watchable. You feel sorry for the quarterbacks having to deal with this. And, Jacksonville has some good edge players. Josh Allen's had a great year. The Devin Lloyd has been somewhat productive this year. Like, they have the players Jacksonville does on defense. They just need to show up for a game that matters. And this is the game that matters. So for me, I'm going to go against you. I'm taking Jacksonville. Road dogs. I think they're at least a touchdown better.
No,
Tennessee,
road favorite.
Road favorite. Tennessee is just not a team that I don't think has the firepower.
They
so to
don't,
speak,
but
to
they can
rise to the occasion.
True, but they can methodically just grind you, and that's how they play. What they've been doing for a couple of years now.
What's the weather? What's the weather like in Tennessee this week? I bet you
exactly.
It's perfect in Jacksonville.
I know. Right. So the other game that matters here, Rondé, is Houston and Indy. Now, this is actually the good one because CJ Stroud is healthy again. Missed a game, and they were just a shell of themselves at quarterback. But Indy is playing good football with Jonathan Taylor back. And as much as we talked about this being the year of the backup quarterback, Gardner Minshew might have been. I'm trying to think. Is he the best of the bunch? Like, he was up there.
Didn't we talk about this a couple of weeks ago? And we went through who would you take as your backup?
Right.
I think, decidedly said, yes, it's him. I don't know that any of the other ones are reliable enough that you want to go with. Like, you feel like you could win games next year with Gardner Minshew.
I agree. Now, he won't get that opportunity because Anthony Richardson, first round draft pick, but they got talent. Jonathan Taylor's missed a lot of games this year because of different injuries, but he's back and he's healthy. Alec Pierce is just a straight go threat. He's run I want to say 115 go routes. It's like the most by 20% in the NFL. It's ridiculous, right? But it's what he does. And then you got Michael Pittman Jr., who obviously his teammate his father was your teammate, and so because this is in Indy, and I remember I asked Matt Ryan this because we called the game last weekend. I was like, man, these people are to the gills here. He said, it's every week. It's like it's like a small town where their thing to do on Sunday is come to the stadium, and the product has been good enough this year that they're really enthused about it. Houston, I give a ton of credit for. I would love to see them stay in this thing by getting a win and hoping Jacksonville loses. But I think going on the road in Indy is a tough grind. I think this line, though, at Indy laying 1 is perfect, right? It's basically a pickup. I think this is a 1 point type of game, but I'm going to take Indy at home just because I think they have the emotional at home edge, but also they have a really good backup quarterback who's not going to make a lot of mistakes. So
I think this game is the if statement. The if statement as compared to the NFC South is different because the winner of this game is in the playoffs. Gets to be that last seed, right? Because I think they all hold the tiebreaker over similarly record. Is that right? Record.
Close.
Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They're all 9-7, and if whichever team wins to get to the 10-win threshold, even if Pittsburgh beats Baltimore, which we'll also be talking about later, they have the tiebreaker over them, so they'll be the last team in. So this one's even different. This is different than the NFC South watching Atlanta, New Orleans. This is you're playing for something, and a healthy CJ Stroud, Nico Collins is back healthy finally. I think that gives them an edge. And part of me, I don't know why I think this. Maybe because I've seen a couple of really bad games from them. I don't know that Indies is even as good as their record. Their defense is just so suspect at times, man. Like whereas you have such talent on offense, obviously big play receivers and big play receivers, good tight ends, two great running backs, and I know Zach's hurt, but and a quarterback that's balling. Like, you expect them to have really secured this spot already, and yet they haven't.
Yeah. So the challenge is, Rondé, is Gus. Gus Bradley is stuck in his ways, bro. Going to play 90% zone coverage, cover 3 all the time, and he's got some young corners who
really
kind of
first year.
right? Jalen, what's his name? I forget his last name. Jalen.
Juju Brents, yeah,
Yeah,
and Jason Jones, yeah,
Jalen Jones. Like sometimes they just are in the wrong place,
right.
and so. But what else can you do? So yes, if they offensively can control things, that gives them the chance to win. But if it's on their defense, because I saw this last week with the Raiders just when they needed to go score, Aiden O'Connell just moved them down the field.
Right.
So that's their one challenge. But I still like them at home.
Yeah, it's interesting. Both Houston -105 and Indy -115 on the money line. Gonna be a good game to bet on. All right, one other big game that matters, Tiki, and then we'll go through this one really quickly. But it's interesting. You and I have been talking, amongst ourselves offline about the Chicago Bears. Man, they play at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 3-point favorite, and Green Bay needs to win to make the playoffs.
Right.
This one's going to be fun. I think Chicago, it's like their house of horrors. You can't go to Green Bay and win. This feels like a different Chicago team all of a sudden. I don't know when it turned. Maybe when Fields came back from his injury. But the past 4 games, I tune in to watch Justin Fields play quarterback right now. He looks great, and deep down, I'm kind of rooting for him because everybody wants to discount young players at the position. It's a hard ass position to play, man.
Right.
Like, let the kid be who he's going to be. And so I think this one's going to be pretty fun.
Especially when you've had multiple head coaches and coordinators and people telling you all different types of things. Ryan Poles, who is their general manager, has a ridiculously hard job in front of him because he's good with ownership, I think. And he should be back. I think he will be back. He deserves to be back. But Matt Eberflus, who's won 5 of his last 7 games or whatever it is, he's found a way to stabilize this team. And while they're not, going to be, they're already eliminated from the playoffs, they don't feel like they're just quitting, right? And while Justin Fields, you're right, is putting up these numbers that are interesting and he's winning games, like the advanced metrics aren't good. So if you go look at like what he's doing and you're like, yeah, I guess he's okay. But then you go really look at it and you're like, nah, man, he's not good at all. He's 31st out of 32.
Right. Put the tape on though, man. The tape matters.
Well, it does. And that's why it's so hard. That's what I mean. That's why it's hard to evaluate. And so courtesy of the DJ Moore trade, the Chicago Bears are sitting with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft from the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, we all know that. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, what do you do if you're Chicago? Do you try to go, get the top pick, or is it Justin Fields and you hold on to Eberflus, or do you fire Eberflus and let the new guy get his own quarterback? It's such a. So my point is, I say all that because that the Chicago Bears team. Forget our outside analysis. That team is saying, well, this could be our last game here, right? We have the chance to be a spoiler for our division rival, and they could also get rid of all of us because they're going to just clean house, right? But perhaps we put a great showing on and we show our worth. It just makes this game so much more interesting.
Right. There's power in that, though, right? To me, as a player, there's power in that knowledge. What you just said, can we destroy Green Bay's chances? And Green Bay's walking wounded right now. They're 3-point favorites at home, but I don't know that I believe it. Their defense has been everybody's patsy for the past month. And I just don't know how Green Bay, goes out and plays against a physical Bears. The Bears defense has been pretty strong lately.
Right.
It goes out and plays against a pretty strong Bears D on a team led by Justin Fields, who, if you put the film on, is making some really damn good plays, man. And then Eberflus, who you just mentioned him, I kind of feel like they're leaning towards keeping him. I mean, if you want to try to build a franchise, this. If you want to build a franchise, it can't be constant turnover. It just doesn't work, man. The start and restart, or the stop and restart that happens when you fire coaches and fire personnel and all this other, it takes too long. And by the time the next guy gets it figured out, you're still sick of it and you're ready to move on. So I don't know. They fortunately, Ryan Poles has a lot of options. If you're a Bears fan, you just hope that he figured this out. But in this game, -3, I'm going for Chicago, man. I'm taking Chicago on the road. I think they cover this, and I would actually pretty much think about putting 142 on the money line too.
Right.
That's money
So
for
so to me, I'm gonna stay with the home team again. I think these last week of the season home games they're just meaningful to the organization, the fan base, the team. And Green Bay's gone through a lot, as you know. And so I think that Matt has done a good job with that team, especially at the beginning of the year when everybody was like, "Oh, I should have kept
yeah,
Aaron
Matt
Rodgers."
LaFleur. Yeah,
Right.
Matt LaFleur,
So
absolutely.
he's done a great job. I'm gonna go with the home team again in this one. Give me Green Bay laying 3 at home. All right, that's it for segment 1. Win a trip to the biggest football game of the year, courtesy of SuperBook Sports. SuperBook will fly you and a friend to Las Vegas for February's championship game. They'll also give you 2 tickets to the game plus a 3-night hotel stay. All you have to do is place a $25 same game parlay between now and January 7th, and you're automatically entered to win. So wager and win a super trip to Las Vegas, courtesy of SuperBook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. You got a gambling problem? Just call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back to Ronde and Tiki, presented by SuperBook. Now, Tiki, it's been 27 years since we were in college football, and it doesn't look like the college football that we played. Now it's like minor league football. It's like real live football now. How good were those playoff games, dude? Those 2 playoff games were.
Oh, they were perfect.
Oh my God.
You couldn't have scripted them any better,
Yeah.
right? One goes into overtime. Michigan plays like crap for most of the game offensively.
Right.
Defensive field position battle. It goes into overtime, and Blake Corum walks it off. I told you, didn't I say Blake Corum last week?
Right.
Didn't I tell you that?
Dude,
Right, he didn't actually walk it off, but they
31-0 when he scores a touchdown, and he scored on the last play of the game.
right, exactly. But then Alabama on their overtime, I don't know what the hell. What's his name? Tommy Reese, the offensive coordinator, was thinking.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I think the snap was bad. If the snap was good, then Milroe has a chance to actually cut underneath the dogging edge, and
Right.
maybe it works, or maybe there's like a run pass option here. I don't know, but that was just
it looked like the kid panicked. Yeah, it looked like the kid panicked because it was a bad low snap, and he was just like, let me try to run through everybody, see if I can be a hero, and not do it. Anyways, before we get to those, let's talk football championship series, Tiki. Montana at South Dakota State. Now, these dudes last played. South Dakota State beat Albany 59-0 on December 15th. North Dakota State lost to Montana on December 16th. They played like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Played their last football game, and now their national championship game. It's like opposite of FBS. FCS plays the playoffs and then takes 2 weeks off before they play the championship game. So it's actually going to be a pretty interesting one because Montana, who has been to the, I think, national championship 3 times, hasn't won in a number of years. South Dakota State is the defending champion. And I looked at this line earlier. Obviously, this is just a prequel to the FBS, but we had to talk about it because it's South Dakota State who won championship last year. And they go into this game, Tiki, 12.5-point favorites. Head coach Jimmy Roberts, his first year with the Jackrabbits, by the way, great name. And the guy who won the first championship for South Dakota State last year just retired last year after winning that game. So I know you probably haven't done a deep dive into these guys. That's about the extent of my knowledge of South Dakota State and Montana. But the 12.5-point line made this kind of interesting to me. So we're going to talk about it for 2 seconds.
I'm going to say, because I know nothing about it, North Dakota State, who barely won again. I mean, it's South Dakota, Montana, who barely won against North Dakota State, is a lesser team than San Diego State, who destroyed Albany. Therefore, I'm going to take South Dakota State to also destroy Montana. It's the law of soliloquy, right? So give me South Dakota State laying 12.5 for the Natty.
I love it, dude. South Dakota State. I heard you say San Diego in there. South Dakota State,
right?
Or 14-0 for the second year in a row, man. Like I mean, there's truth in that even Montana probably knows at this point. They haven't lost a game. They've only lost 2 games all year by less, or they've won every game by at least more than 11, except for 2. They've just destroyed people, man. I know Montana's a bunch of grinders. Like, we go out to Montana every summer, so I have a lot of respect for, the Mountain West and everything out that way. But let's get real. I mean, this is 12.5 points for a reason. I think the Jackrabbits probably win by 2 touchdowns. It should be a fight. By the way, if you didn't watch the North Dakota State and Montana game, it was like full snowstorm. It was kind of awesome. Anyways, moving on. Tiki, FBS National Championship on the 8th of January, the day after the FCS Championship, which is on Sunday at 2 o'clock, by the way, if you care to not watch professional football.
I was going to say.
The FBS National Championship is
Why do they do that, by the way?
no idea. I have no idea. The FBS Championship is Monday. Washington, surprisingly, I think in a lot of people's eyes, at Michigan, number 1 Michigan. Michigan 4.5 point dogs, or 4.5 point favorites. I'm sorry. As we go into this game, 55 points.
The game is obviously neutral.
Right, it's a neutral game, but the number 1, the higher seed gets to be the home team. So that's at Michigan.
And Michigan's likely to travel better than Washington, so I guess it is kind of like a home game, but
right.
It's not in Ann Arbor, for those who are wondering.
Yes. No,
it's not in the big house.
No, although going back to FCS, their title, the semifinal games are at home.
Yeah,
anybody knew that?
I mean, that would be badass if they actually did that for college football.
I know, too much money in the bowls, bro. Too much money in the bowls. There's no way that would happen.
Michigan, the big house is 110, bro. It's 110,000 tickets, and it's probably like 130 you can get in there standing room.
All right.
Right. $1,000 a ticket. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
What do we think? What do you think for national championship game? All right. Physical defense, University of Michigan. Efficient offense, University of Washington. What do you see?
So, I mean, this is in a similar venue, the Jerry World down in Dallas. So this is an interesting game to me because Michigan is built in theory on a stout defense and not allowing huge plays, which is exactly what Washington wants to do. Right? It was from jump of that game. I actually felt like I was watching Joe Flacco for the Cleveland Browns just launch 50-yard shots on second down on the first drive of the game. Right. That's what Washington wants to do. And the reason they can do it is because they're pretty good at protecting Michael Penix. And despite, looking odd as a lefty, he throws a really nice ball.
Yes.
Right. Even into tight coverage, 20 plus yards downfield.
Right.
And so I think if you're Michigan, you'd rather die a million deaths by this little slices than get beat over the top in like Texas did. Early in that game. And so to me, the advantage is to Michigan because they can just change what they do. I don't know if Washington can change what they do. And, interestingly, I think that Penix is the better quarterback than JJ McCarthy, even though McCarthy has more experience. He's been in this situation a year ago, losing in the semifinal round last year. And so to me, the advantage is to Michigan, even though I think Penix is the better quarterback, if that makes sense. It's a convoluted evaluation because usually we look at who's the best quarterback. But I think the national championship has proven over the years it's not always the best quarterback. It's who can do it as a team. We saw it Clemson years ago. We've seen it with Alabama sometimes. Obviously, Georgia, they were just dominant. So to me, the advantage, I'm going to give it to Michigan simply because they've been here. And it would be prophetic for Jim Harbaugh to win a national championship and then try to go to the NFL.
Right. I look at this game and I think there's more blue chip first round, second round players on Michigan's team. So like for an NFL guy like we are, I don't associate myself with college that much, but we have to talk college football. I see a lot more talent on Michigan's team. There'll be more guys playing on Sunday on Michigan's team. Washington, obviously, the quarterback's going to get drafted. He's probably a second or third round pick. I don't know. Maybe winning a national championship changes some people's minds about him. Probably could have, should have won the Heisman based on the way that he's played here in the postseason. What I expect him to play in the championship game. But outside of him, it's a doozy, right? The receiver is the only high-profile player. He could be the best receiver in the country next to Marvin Harrison. So if I'm looking at talent-wise, I just look at that. I'd say Michigan has the better team, and they should, in a neutral site, in the biggest game that they're probably ever going to play, the more talented team should win. I think that's why they come in as favorites. That being said, after watching Washington play and seeing how, DeBoer, is that how you say is the coach's name? So watching him coach this team and will something out of all of his players that are leaving a defunct conference in the Pac-12, going to play in the Big Ten next year. This is their welcome to the Big Ten moment, by the way. They get to play Michigan in the national championship game. But watching him, how he manages his football team and the expectation that he's put on them and that they just keep winning, it's hard for me not to want to take plus 175 on a money line with Washington. I kind of think they could win. It would be very, prophetic for a Michigan team that has all the talent in the world to come up short in a game against a team that nobody really even was accounting for early in the season. And I'm telling you, he's a Tampa kid, so maybe I'm biased on this deal. But Penix is a fun player to watch, and I agree with you that lefty motion. I'm not sure why lefties look awkward, but they all look awkward. But it is probably the prettiest ball in college football right now.
Right, it looks like he's pushing the ball, but it spins perfectly, so he's not. It's just I think our brains are flipped, so it's hard to make it look right. As much
you can't make it feel like normal.
Yeah, exactly. DeBoer has been amazing. I forgot the record that they showed, but all levels going back to the FCS levels that he coached when he was younger. He's just a hell of a coach. It was funny when the Pac-12 made all these new hires over the last few years. Chip Kelly is one, and others. Right? Nobody talked about Washington, and here they are, an undefeated Pac-12 championship, Pac-12 champion, going to the college football playoff final. And as much as I say that Michigan, Rondé, has the advantage, Michigan loses games that they're not supposed to all the time, or they play tight in games that they're not supposed to. I could see Washington winning this game.
DeBoer career record 104-11.
Yeah, that's it.
4 undefeated seasons at NAIA Sioux Falls and 3 national championships there. All he does is win.
Yeah,
all he does is find ways to win. So,
yeah, I'm gonna. The money is right. I'm gonna go Washington as well. I'm gonna side with you.
I love it. All right, ask me next, Tiki.
That's right.
We got some.
That's the end. That's the end of segment 2. The only college football segment we've ever done on this show. We'll be back
we made it through. We made it through, even if we don't know who Montana State or Montana Grizzlies and South Dakota State Jackrabbits are.
Well, I mean, whatever. We're 95% of America right now. We only parachuted in for the college football playoff. Refer a friend and earn a $50 bonus this season with SuperBook Sports. SuperBook is the most trusted name in sports wagering, and you don't want to miss their Refer a Friend bonus. All you need to do is click on the Refer a Friend link under the profile photo and on the SuperBook app, and then share that promo code with your friends, and you'll get a $50 bonus for anyone and everyone who registers using your code. So win money wagering and then win some more money referring this season with SuperBook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to Ronde and Tiki, presented by SuperBook. Last segment here. Do some games at the end. But first, ask me.
Can I go first?
Sure.
All right, Tiki. In lieu of the conversation we just had about college football championship game coming up on Monday.
Yeah, you mean in light of, not in lieu. In lieu would be
Like,
instead.
yeah, thank you. In light of, well, in lieu, we could be talking about this instead of talking about national championship game.
Yeah,
Talking
that's
about,
it.
I can work with the English language sometimes. Is JJ McCarthy are JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. going to be some team's starting quarterback next year? Go.
Next year, talking
Ready?
about the NFL.
Yes, in the NFL.
That's a good question. So I think Michael Penix is such an interesting story because all the transfers and the ACLs on both knees, but he's a big kid, like 6'4". He looked it. You saw it on the playoff game. 230, 20-something pounds, throws a great ball. He's accurate. He's tough. He's smart as hell. Seems like an awesome kid, but he's 23 years old. And so think about this. Daniel Jones, let's say a team like Daniel Jones, the Giants, Daniel Jones is not healthy enough. The Giants say, you know what, we need to take a quarterback. We don't want to take a first rounder. Let's take a second rounder and Michael Penix, right? They draft him. He's 23 years old, right? By the time he's eligible for his free agent contract, he's almost 28, right? And so, you know how old Daniel Jones is right now? 26. Right? Like it's unreal. Like we've seen this before. Will Levis, like he's 24 years old. He's a rookie again, but I think it's hard to draft those guys in the first round. And if you're not drafted in the first round, the chances of you starting the season or at all?
Let's say at all.
At all, the answer is yes, because they're gonna be on an NFL team, and we know that there are a dearth of quarterbacks in the NFL. And somebody's going to draft Michael Penix in the second round, maybe late first. Who knows? JJ McCarthy might be late second or third as well. And somebody's going to get hurt. And these guys they're good enough and they're going to play. And who knows if they're going to be good, but these guys are NFL quarterbacks. I'm not saying they're starting quarterbacks, but I do think they end up starting some games at some point. That's for sure.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. So the Steelers, again, for the 17th time in Mike Tomlin's career, they have a non-losing season, which is ridiculous, unbelievable. But they're favorites, minus 185 favorites on the road at Baltimore. But the Ravens may sit players, and if they sit too many guys, and this is the right, day for the Steelers, they could win this game. Could they be letting their rivals get into the playoffs? Is that a good idea for the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, this is a two-pronged question in my mind. So do you want to let the Pittsburgh Steelers in? It probably doesn't matter because Pittsburgh's not great. They're not going to make a run, I don't think, in the playoffs. They have some deficiencies. I will say Mason Rudolph at quarterback is a lot better option than anything I've seen all year quarterback for Pittsburgh.
He hasn't played in 3 years.
I know.
He's so much better than I remember.
Well, first of all, he's big, he's strong, and he's willing to throw the ball on time. Not any of the quarterbacks that have played, and you know who I'm talking about,
right.
Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, haven't been willing to do that. Mason Rudolph will throw rhythm passes for first downs. Like I was having this conversation with a good buddy of mine. I was like, George Pickens is benefiting just by getting opportunities to catch a football, just throwing the football. Like in the last two games, he's had 320 something yards on 14 targets. I don't think he had 14 targets in the previous month and a half of the season. So, I mean, Mason Rudolph, bravo for getting the most talented player on your team involved, and why it took so long for that team to do that, who knows? But to answer your question, are the Ravens going to sit guys? I think a lot of this week in professional football is going to be determinant on that. There's going to be a lot of teams that are sitting, and the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, he probably should. It doesn't matter what they do, right? In this game, sitting guys is probably imperative. I guarantee you, Lamar Jackson does not play in this football game. I would be shocked if he did, even if it was just for start or quarter. But is it the right thing to do? Again, we opened this podcast today talking about this. I don't think Ravens, and you sit a bunch of the guys, especially a bunch of important guys, you're taking 2 weeks off. You got that you got the full bye. You're not playing for that anymore. You have the bye already. And just turning yourself off mentally is sometimes hard to turn it back on.
Yeah.
And I know John Harbaugh is very good at preseason football, meaningless football. I don't think he will do that, to be honest with you. I think he'll play guys. The only guy I think won't play will be the quarterback. I think everybody else plays in this game, and they try to give Pittsburgh a run. Now, can Pittsburgh win? I think Pittsburgh's shown in the past 2 weeks that, with this quarterback, they can win games. But is it the right play by John Harbaugh to sit people? I would say no. They did this a couple of years ago, if you remember. 2019, and looked like trash coming out of it. And I think he learned a lesson. I don't think he'll do it again.
Yeah, they played the Titans, and
exactly right.
They played soft, but that was the Titans, and that was Derrick Henry at his height. So circumstance. All right, let's get to some of these games.
Here we go, Tiki. Here we go.
I would never, ever sit anybody. The Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders.
Can we make fun of Dak Prescott? Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Who did that to him? Some team did it to him. It was Buffalo. In Buffalo, they were doing it. And it disrupted them. They played terrible in that game.
Oh, funny.
But they are laying 13 on the road against the Commanders. I think there's no question this is a rout.
Yes, I agree.
I like Sam Howell at times, but I think Dallas is on a mission because nobody thought or gave them any chance to win this division this year. And I'm not talking at the beginning. I'm talking, 10 weeks in. This was Philadelphia running away. Hell, 15 weeks in. Philadelphia, they lost some games. And now Philadelphia, by virtue of losing to the Arizona Cardinals, have opened the door for the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to make an example of a bad team and win the division because they control it. As crazy as that sounds, the Eagles don't control anything here.
Right. So 2 games to talk about in the NFC East because they don't play each other. In the AFC East, we get to talk about that. That'll be the last game we talk about. But I'm with you here. Dallas minus 1,000. There's a reason that number is there. Like nobody expects Dallas to lose this game. Jacoby Brissett was supposed to start last week for Washington. Somehow gets hurt on Thursday. He's out on Friday. Sam Howell has to start and play decent against the 49ers. But this team this is an exclamation point game. You have to win this game, and you have to put a big stamp on winning the division, and I think they do it here. So I think both of us agree. Philly at New York, Tiki. I think you know a little bit about how this one's going to feel. The Giants going to be a pain in the butt for the Eagles, I think, this weekend. Think about this: if for Philly, if they're watching, their scoreboard watching like everybody does on week 18, they're going to see Dallas hammering Washington and knowing that they have no shot to win the East. So will Sirianni rest players can they afford to rest players with the way that they've been playing lately? Give me your take on Philly, New York, and New York is better this right now than they have been at any point in the year.
Right. They're finally, I don't know what it is either. I can't pinpoint why they're all of a sudden playing like they did a year ago. But I do think that Philly can't afford to rest, just like we were talking before, because they haven't played a good game yet, at least not in the last half of the season. Even the ones that they've won, it felt like they kind of stole. And so they need to play a strong game. And I think they're going to play everybody. Now, with that said, the Giants are playing, they're the perfect spoiler. Hell, they almost did it to the Rams last weekend. Yes. If it wasn't for Mason Crosby missing an extra point and then a game-winning field goal, they would have. Right. And so the Giants, and this is a credit to Daves, and I've been saying it since Daves became the head coach a year and almost 2 years ago. Right? They play hard for him. It's the culture that he built, and he makes you earn it. And so even when you're bad, or at least your record says that you're bad, there's still something meaningful happening on Sundays. And so I think the Giants give them all they can take. Are they good enough to win? I don't think so. But Philly's not good enough to really beat anybody either right now. So this is to me, this is a pick'em game. So with New York at getting 5.5, give me the Giants all day, man.
I couldn't agree with you more. It feels like there's so much turmoil in the Eagles locker room, and with that turmoil comes this like lack of belief in winning. Right. Like people outside of locker rooms don't really understand what that is, but you know what that is. You know what that feels like when it's not right, and no matter what you do, no matter what you try to change during the week or whatever, it's just not going to translate to wins. And right now, the Giants, Tiki with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, are I think the best version of themselves. The offense is efficient. Saquon looks like Saquon's supposed to look. And by the way, Tiki, kudos to your post on him, NFL Man of the Year. He should get the award. He's awesome. Dude is just a great dude. All right, finally, last game of the week, and it's going to be the best game of the week by far. Buffalo at Miami. It's the biggest game we're going to discuss because the winner is the number 2 seed. And Miami doesn't need to be the 2 seed. They're already in the playoffs. Buffalo wins number 2. They lose, there's a small chance they don't even make it. So this is going to be a great game. The reverse fixture, if you remember, early in the year, 20-48, Buffalo trounced Miami. So I think there's got to be a sense of we have to get right in this game. If you're the
Dolphins. Have to get revenge in this game. Thank goodness this is in Miami and not in Buffalo with the nor'easter that's coming this way, because it would be a miserable advantage Buffalo Bills type of game. But we've talked this a couple of times about teams that you just don't trust. Miami is one of those teams. And it's not, I'm not saying they're bad at all, but they just lose Bradley Chubb, who was their disruptor at their right defensive end, their edge. And so that is enormous. So Josh Allen.
Yeah. The other defensive end is out as well. He's IR early in the year.
So Josh Allen, who is, as mobile a quarterback as there is all of a sudden not going to have pressure on him. And we've seen Gabe Davis evolve into this player. The running game has been really good. The advantage to me in perfect condition down in Miami is clearly on the Buffalo Bills, who had a game plan earlier in the year that worked to perfection to do that again. The only way that Miami, I think, even keeps this close is if they get a lot of shot plays. Right. So if they can scheme their way into quick scores, because Buffalo is not going to quick score you. They're going to grind you and or at least grind the Miami Dolphins here. And it's going to force their hand. It's going to force Miami's hand. It's going to put them in a pressure spot. So to me, this is advantage Buffalo, even though they're on the road and their backs are literally against the wall because of how the circumstances could push them out of the playoffs, right? This is almost a win and in and losing out type scenario, even though it might not work out that way. But if you're the Buffalo Bills, that's what you have to say. You have to say to yourself, if we lose this game, we are not going to the playoffs.
That's a very good point. I would say this about Miami. Mike McDaniel is a good coach. Right. We all appreciate what Mike McDaniel has done this year in terms of record, in terms of what he's done with his team this season, what it's looked like. Yes, they've had to deal with some adversity, certainly some adversity now. Jalen Waddle's going to be out of this game. Xavier Howard's going to be out of this game. But that being said, all that they've done this year, this is the opportunity to say, look, we're still underdogs. People are putting us home dogs week 18 after everything that we've done this year. And we have to prove it now. And this is their time to prove it. Now, does it get them in or out of the playoffs? No, but it still can be a statement game for them. And I think they have to approach it that way. But Tiki, I'm with you, dude. Buffalo, Josh Allen is like Miami is his personal stat booster. Just go back and look at what Josh Allen has done against Miami in his career. The numbers are ridiculous. Like I didn't even write them down because they're not believable what he's done against this football team. And I think Buffalo, it has more urgency. This has been an up and down year. We've talked about them all year long, being the team, then being out, and now being like one game away from getting in. And this is like you feel like this is their last opportunity, right? If they don't win this year, then the expectations on them diminish wholly. going forward. So I think
Right.
they're going to put everything going forward here, and I think they do go on the road and as favorites and win this game in Miami.
Yeah, it'll be a fun last week of the NFL season. Looking forward to it. We'll be back next week, talk some playoff football, wild card football.
Playoffs.
Ronde
Hey,
and Tiki.
Tiki, good quarterbacks. There's some good quarterbacks in the playoffs this year. There's some bad ones, but
some good ones. There's always good ones, and there's always bad ones. Anyways, we'll see you next week.
The Rondé and Tiki podcast is produced by SuperBook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Maryland, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, and Tennessee. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF or visit 800betsoff.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342.